The following program is a mix of on-camera interviews, contemporary footage, and archival imagery and paintings. On camera, Fred McVaugh,
Catlin.
Leslie Wishman,
Catlin, I do like Catlin.
Dr. Alfred Runty.
He's not a hippie. No, Catlin's not a hippie.
Does Catlin have a celebrity look-alike?
I'd say more Robert Redford.
Two images. On the left, Robert Redford. On the right, George Catlin. The same painted portrait of George Catlin.
George Catlin first called for the creation of a nation's park.
A montage, many aerials of national park landscapes. On-screen text, a nation's park. The portrait of George Catlin. This time we pan down to his hand, holding a paintbrush.
George Catlin begins as a painter, and every artist tried his hand at Niagara Falls.
Different paintings of Niagara Falls. On-screen text, Louisa Davis, Alvin Fisher, Thomas Cole.
And nobody's come close. Catlin is a genius. He does the first bird's eye view.
A painting showing Niagara Falls from above. Graphics showing areas on the painting with homes and farms.
The beauty of Niagara that they're coming to paint, the uniqueness of Niagara, is changing before their very eyes. The world is losing Niagara to private ownership. When you're losing a place like Niagara Falls to privatization is certainly going to happen on the prairies and plains unless the government intervenes.
A painting of Fort Union, surrounded by tribes.
Catlin agonizes that these great expanses of prairies and plains that the Indians now occupy will eventually be given to settlers back east. George Catlin moves into the west to paint the Indian.
On-screen text. In 1832, George Catlin arrives at Fort Union Trading Post. While here, he paints portraits of tribal members who came to trade. Fred enters a stone room and sits on a cannon.
George Catlin, at the time he was here, does write about sitting on the breech of the cannon to keep his rear a little cool while he's making his paintings and drawings.
Exterior, Fort Union.
Fort Union, it was a major outpost of the American fur trade.
A silhouetted
The
teepee.
Indians are camped around the fort because they want the goods and they want to
A
trade.
portrait of a female tribal member. Contemporary footage of two teepees with a smokestack from a pioneer-style tent adjacent.
But how is this going to last? The pioneers aren't stopping.
A hand holds a rifle.
The railroad is coming.
Tents in the background.
Then there's, of course, the gold rush.
A train goes past Fort Union Trading Post.
Agonizing over the future of the natives, he proposes a nation's park containing man and beast and all the wild and freshness of their nature's beauty.
A map graphic.
He pitched it in New York newspapers, a great national park that is an Indian reservation that will take up the entire interior of the continent.
He wanted to preserve both the wildlife and the people.
A scenic view of the Western Plains with a painting of tribes hunting buffalo faded over
The
top.
country is not prepared to listen to that.
Black and white footage of logging. Logs float down the transportation wooden shaft, then move as cargo by freight train.
And then slowly this idea of having more protection of forest lands begins to gain credence, that if we don't set it aside, the loggers are going to get it, and we better get to it first.
A moose is eating in a scenic area.
So that's how we start to get parks.
People riding horses.
It's just that a third of the continent, no, that's not going to happen.
Fort Union.
The experiences of people like George Catlin here might have influenced the creation of America's greatest or best idea, which is actually a global
A
phenomenon.
montage of portraits of tribes, then the same painting of George Catlin. Credits play, then the National Park Service arrowhead.